Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I am Sean Butler. I hope you are all happy and healthy, doing the things you love. No walkies today for Bugsy. She's been taken out by another family member, but she'll get her walks later. And we've got lots to talk about in this video. We've got lots to talk about today. There's a lot of news out today. I'm not sure if I'm going to squeeze everything into one video, so look out for a second one later on. Before we get into it, guys, please smash the like button for me on the video. If you like the content, you know how important it is. And I don't really have to ask that hard because your like game has been so incredibly generous in January. 95% of the videos that I've put out have had over 1,000 likes, some of them up towards 2,000. It's been phenomenal from you guys. I really appreciate the support. Really do. It really helps the channel. Hit the subscribe button as well, guys, whilst you're at it, if you haven't already. And even if you have, double check you still are, because of YouTube shenanigans that are afoot. Hit the notification bell and drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts on today's topic. And it's a transfer news, views, and clues of a slightly different stance, take, angle, whatever you want to call it. This isn't about players, but there is a transfer that is happening, and it's news from the football club. And that is that Todd Klein, Chief Commercial Officer, board member Todd Klein, responsible for so much of what has happened at Tottenham with regards to the financial side of the football club, flies under the radar. A lot of you that maybe are new to this channel won't possibly pay too much attention to him or what he has done, but I promise you it's been very influential and effective in raising the revenue numbers. We're going to talk about that in just a second, but before we do, let's talk about the brevity here of the statement from the club announcement itself. Todd Klein has resigned from his post at the club and has been placed on a period of garden leave with immediate effect. Very short, very to the point, very curt. Why? No thank you for your time. No, we wish you well in the future. Not even a recognition of his title and what he's done at the football club. To me, that strikes as that this has come as a surprise, and that this is something that maybe has a little bit of the energy isn't necessarily good on. It's not well received by the football club. And I can understand why when you look into the detail. For those of you who are not familiar with Todd Klein, let's just have a quick look at him. Here he is, this guy right here. Todd Klein, Chief Commercial Officer, board member at Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. He's been at Tottenham for 3 years. He joined in May 2021. American from descent, comes over with a huge amount of experience in the space of commercial operations within the sporting world, especially in North America. He was Chief Commercial Officer of the Washington Redskins. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, that the Washington Redskins were the first team to have moved into certain areas like virtual reality of watching their games play and bringing loads of kind of nuanced technological improvisations and kind of stepping into that new digital workspace, if you like. Before that, he was at the Miami Dolphins at the Hard Rock Stadium. Anyway, we're not going to spend too long dwelling on where he's been, because he's not at Tottenham anymore. But where he is going is possibly why there is a little bit of animosity, or maybe I'm reading into it, but a little bit of baked-in animosity in the goodbye message from Tottenham Hotspur. Fabrizio Romano an hour ago says, understand that Todd Klein is set to join Chelsea in the next months after leaving Tottenham as role of commercial chief officer. He's been placed on gardening leave, as reported by Matt Law, and told he will join Chelsea right after. Now, those of you old enough and with a long enough memory will remember a certain similar situation happening with Frank Arneson, the once upon a time director of football at Tottenham Hotspur, who was tasked with almost being a part of that situation that started the revolution of Tottenham, started getting Tottenham out of the mid-table doldrums into a team that was going places with some very core key signings that were a part of the Martin Jol era and that took us forward. He then got poached by Chelsea under Roman Abramovich. And so maybe this particular signing or this exit from Todd Klein is a little bit of a reminder of Daniel Levy about that particular process and the kind of the toxicity that surrounded it. Listen, Todd Klein, to a lot of people, will be remembered as someone that didn't get the naming rights deal. We're going to talk about that in just 1 second. But before we do, guys, I want to give this guy the flowers that he deserves. You know, I don't really have too much of an interest here in sort of throwing him under the bus. He's got to do what he wants to do. I'm sure Tottenham will be absolutely fine. However, this is Tottenham Hotspur's Let me get this up for you. This is Tottenham Hotspur's financial results over the last 15 years, from 2008 until 2009, as seen by Statista.com. Now, we're only really interested here from 2020-21 season. He arrived in the May of 2021, so he won't have been responsible for the commercial number, which was 170.8 million in that particular year. But the last 2 years are everything that's down to him, or in no small part down to him. Now, remember, this is also going through the COVID scenario, and so he had to battle reorganizing, restructuring, trying to acquire commercial sponsorship deals in the midst of the COVID pandemic. And obviously, without the match day revenue, as you can see, that particular year, or the guarantees of match day revenue for the following years, he wouldn't have necessarily had easy conversations regarding that. However, in 2021, Tottenham had $170.8 million of commercial revenue. Just to break it down, sorry, I forgot to mention this. As you know, you may know if you watch this channel, may not know if you don't, but Tottenham Hotspur break down our financial accounts in the most top level, basic line item viewpoints as possible. They don't go into any more detail than they absolutely have to. They don't like integrate these results with any nuance around where the money's come from within specific talking points, or within specific topics or categories within the commercial, within the broadcasting, or within the match day. But it's safe to say that all of the commercial number includes things like concerts, rugby, the NFL, any sponsorship deals that are taking place with regards the car company, I forget its name, that Sir Jim Ratcliffe is with, all of the deals with the various bath soaps and all those things that you see all the time when we laugh about. All of that stuff is within his remit, and it falls under the commercial banner. 170.8 million was the number the year before he arrived. In the following year, it jumped to 215 million, which is an increase of 45 million euros in 1 year, which is a 26% rise, in over 12 months, which is an absolutely insane growth. And then the following year, this last year, which hasn't necessarily been ratified yet, we haven't necessarily seen the accounts. It hasn't been released to the public anyway. But the estimated numbers here are saying that 261 million euros of revenues have come in, which is 16% growth on the year prior, which is another phenomenal year. Obviously, it's a little bit muted, but a lot of maybe the low-hanging fruit was taken when he first came in. And in the second year, maybe the new numbers are not quite as easy to find. However, when you look back over a 2-year period, from 171 million euros of commercial revenue to 261 million euros of commercial revenue, that is an 89 million euro leap in revenue numbers from his department, what he is ultimately responsible for, which, guys, results to a 52% growth in a 24-month period. So, guys, a lot of the nuance around Todd Klein will be focused on his inability to sign a naming rights deal for Tottenham Hotspur. But as I've always said on this channel, there's pros and cons to every scenario, to every opportunity. And the fact that Tottenham had opportunities to sign naming rights deals but haven't taken them tells you something. If that the intelligence of Todd Klein and Daniel Levy decided to go against the grain. And we'll get into why that might be in just a second. However, for what it's worth, there were naming rights opportunities for Tottenham Hotspur. There have been naming rights opportunities for many other teams. This article was written from the Daily Star, so forgive me for the crude journalistic integrity of it, but it's still got the detail, and the devil is there. This is the 7 most lucrative stadium naming rights deals in football history. That are football specific, and this was obviously written in 2022. I don't believe there's been anything bigger since. Barcelona just signed a £236 million contract over, I think that's 5 years. The next one down is, that was with Spotify. The Etihad Stadium had a 10-year contract that was worth 400 million, so 40 million pound a year. And of course, Manchester City are currently under investigation for those sorts of concerns around the value versus the returns of naming rights deals. Arsenal back in the day in 2018 had an extension to a deal with the Etihad, the Emirates, that was for 200 million pound over a 6-year period. So, and then you could look to Atletico Madrid, you can look to Fenerbahce. They have a £7 million a year agreement in place with Ulka, a Turkish cookie and cracker manufacturer based in Istanbul. The Alliance Arena in Bayern Munich is worth £6.5 million a year. Guys, the naming rights deals, for what it's worth in football, top out at about £45 million a year. And for a long time, Tottenham Hotspur were targeted as, because we have the newest stadium, the best stadium, the most appealing stadium for reach to a global audience, Tottenham were targeted at maybe looking for a £50 million a year deal. It hasn't happened. It hasn't happened. But that doesn't mean that Todd Klein failed. Because if you also take note of the fact that Tottenham Hotspur are the fastest growing supporter base, or have the fastest growing supporter base of any team in North America. And that is because, in no small part, when the NFL comes to town, which is another thing that Todd Klein and Daniel Levy sort of were working together on in amplifying the value of over the last 2 years of Todd Klein's time here, then the amount of, it's very difficult to quantify. It's almost unquantifiable, the value, the legacy value, the lifetime value of every time an American fan that hasn't yet picked a Premier League team watches their NFL and here's the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And then when their interest is peaked around joining the Premier League as a fan, they then naturally would move towards Tottenham Hotspur. We are officially the highest, I believe, the officially the fastest growing Premier League football club supported in North America by an absolute mile. And that is in no small part down to the relationships we have with the NFL and the future potential value of having an NFL team based in London that would also be under the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. That wouldn't happen if we were called the Gillette Arena or the Googleplex or the Amazon Arena or whatever else. There's a value, there's a reason why naming rights is valuable to the person who purchases them. There's also a reason why keeping your own stadium under the name Tottenham Hotspur is valuable to the owner of the rights in the meantime, which is, of course, Tottenham Hotspur. And so Todd Klein shouldn't, in my opinion, be thought of as ultimately a failure at Tottenham Hotspur for not securing something that has ultimately benefited Tottenham for not just the present, but the future as well. If there was a deal that was too difficult to refuse, then I think that Tottenham would have obviously signed it, but there hasn't been one. And Todd Klein has ultimately decided to move on to pastures new at Chelsea. Listen, I wish him well. I think that the commercial role is eminently more replaceable than is the role of a director of football. So I don't have the same apathy. I don't have the same resentment towards Chelsea for poaching our commercial director as I did our director of football, because I think most of the things are in place at Tottenham Hotspur right now for us to move forward in the right direction. We've already got the biggest footprint into the American market, thanks in no small part down to Todd Klein and Daniel Levy having a good working relationship. Now, I can't explain the kind of lack of respect or the lack of praise or acknowledgement of the time that he spent here. Obviously, something for me, it feels like there's been an argument behind the scenes around involvement, or maybe Chelsea made him an offer, Todd Klein made him an offer that he can't refuse, etc. But in any event, I wouldn't see this necessarily as terrible news, guys. I think that we can now move into other markets. I think we do have the footprint in America, and that is something that we can improve upon, no doubt about it. But there's other markets in the world that Tottenham Hotspur are looking to work into on a commercial avenue. And when those things emerge, I'll bring them to you here at the Spurs Talk Show. But Todd Klein, I will be the first to say thank you very much for your time at Tottenham Hotspur. I think you've done a very good job. And I think that it was right not to sell ourselves short. I like the fact that the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium is not called the Google Arena or anything else. And for what it's worth, people that have this idea that having a naming rights deal would have made us a financial Goliath, it's not true. It's really not true. On a 10-year period, even if you were to get £40 million in for per season, in this day and age, it's a nice additional bumper to the revenues, but it would only equate to about 6 to 7, maybe 7.5% of revenues, which would already present us with a further strengthening relationship within our FFP promises and guidelines and our risk assessment in that regard. But ultimately, for me, it's not the be all and end all that would suddenly make us be able to go out there and buy, the world's best players. Is it desirable? Sure, if the numbers are right. But if the numbers aren't right, then don't sell yourself short. Daniel Levy is always going to protect the best interests of his investment in Tottenham Hotspur, and hopefully as a byproduct of that, then Tottenham Hotspur itself. And if the numbers aren't right, then we don't sign on the dotted line. And that Todd Klein couldn't provide us with an opportunity that was juicy enough to make it make sense. I don't think he failed. I think he was a massive success in everything else that he's helped us achieve. To the point that what Tottenham are the richest club in North London, or the richest club in London temporarily. I think Arsenal's revenues, for what it's worth, will go above us for next year's accounts because of our absence from the Champions League and their position within it this season. But ultimately, guys, in a nutshell, Todd Klein moves on. This might seem irrelevant to you guys if you don't really care about that thing, but I think it is a big deal. It is a meaningful loss. I'm not going to sit here and resent him. I wish him well with his next venture, but Tottenham now need to go and find somebody else who's an expert in the amplification of what we've already achieved in certain areas of the geographic realm, like America, but also that can be experts in the new emerging markets that I think there will be plenty of, specifically in South America, in Northern Europe, in places like Denmark. I'll explain why on a separate video, but to give you a tidbit, Tottenham are looking, according to a report from Football Insider, are looking to strike up a feeder club relationship. I hate the term feeder club, but a feeder club relationship with Nords Jelland, the Danish team. I'm going to do a separate video on that includes the multi-club ownership model, because I genuinely believe that Scott Munn is here for that purpose. I've been talking about it on this channel, and I think it's going to be exciting times. And I think we're about to see in the next 12 months some movement in that direction. Things are going to escalate very quickly at Tottenham as we now look to move into new fields, new markets, and perhaps the commercial director needs to be someone that has a bigger grasp on foreign lands than just where you grew up. Thank you very much for your time, Todd Klein. I appreciate you. Good luck wherever you go, whatever you do, but there's no resentment from me. Tottenham will carry on. Like, subscribe, and comment, guys. And as always, come on, you Spurs.